Family Chiropractic. We are going to talk about the perfect storm. The perfect storm can, people know, reference in a lot of different things, but tonight, the perfect storm in our world of pediatric chiropractic comes to the topic of how do we get to kiddos in such prevalence in 2021 be on the spectrum, have sensory processing disorder, ADHD. Man, it's an overwhelming amount. Today I was at the jump place with my daughter, and holy cow, are there so many sensory kids in our world. The best part about all of this, mom and dad, number one, the kiddos are amazing. Number two, there can be help. We have answers. We can help. We're going to give you tactics. We're going to talk about how we got here and how we get out of this storm. Because if you think it's going to just magically go away, reality is that it's not. So we're here. We're stoked. We've helped so many kiddos through this storm within our office, and we are stoked to help your kiddos too. So these are these kiddos. Some of our favorites amongst the many. They range from literally infants all the way up into high school years. We've even helped kiddos in their 20s and 30s get out of this storm and do things like in their 20s, like start driving, start having fun experiences again, start making friends. The younger kids on the other end of this all, the infants, right? Start looking in parents' eyes, start interacting, start moving their body normally, start developing on time versus being totally disconnected from the world. It's all about reconnection. When it comes to this spectrum of things, right? Sensory processing, autism, ADHD, it's all on a large spectrum. The most intense are the autistic kiddos. The least intense are the kiddos who just are a little quirky, right? The kiddos who, I don't really like the way these socks feel. I don't really like the way this food tastes in my mouth. Going through that, I don't like all of this stuff. I don't like the loud noises. I don't like the lights. I don't like the way that my socks feel. I don't like the way that this person interacts with me. I don't really like to witness anything in the world. I'm just scared of the world, right? I'm just so overwhelmed because my senses are all over the place. So the kiddos who just can't focus in school, who can't learn, who are having such a hard time. And right, if these kiddos are having a hard time, it affects the entire family unit. It affects all their relationships. It affects their relationships with their friends and their other siblings. It just causes such a big stressor. The reality is we can get through this storm. We can get through the storm. You're looking at 5 faces on this screen right now that have walked through the storm, and they are on the other side, and they are thriving on the other side of it. So what we're going to talk about tonight is a huge aspect of this, a thing that we do in our office on a regular basis, but in the world that is talking about these sensory kiddos, as I'm going to call them, I like to call them, is something that we're not talking about. So I don't know if you've ever seen this clip before. We're going to check it out. So watch this and let me know what you think.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
Pay attention.
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
So most people miss this, right? The bear just walks right across there. So focused on the passing, they don't even see this bear that walks across the screen. It's so easy to miss something you're not looking for. So easy to miss something that you're not looking for. The world that studies these kiddos, your kiddos, they're not looking for something that we are looking at that helps them tremendously. So what is the perfect storm? Where does it start? How does it begin? We live in a stressful, toxic world, right? If we thought this happened just sporadically from somewhere out of nowhere, right? That's the reality, is that is not true. It began most likely with fertility or pregnancy stress, right? Pregnancy, the stressors that happen during pregnancy, all the red flags that happen, all the things that we talk about, especially in this last year. Man, moms have had so much stress during their pregnancy. We take care of so many pregnant mamas in our office, and these last year and a half, 2 years have been so crazy stressful on mom. Outside of that, still stressful before that, and all this is done, it's going to still be stressful and more toxic after this. So fertility issues too, right? The IVFs, the IUIs, just the fertility drugs in general, trying to get pregnant, doing all of these things, the toxic environments that moms experience during pregnancy, and then leading into the birth, right? Medical interventions at labor and birth, right? All of those, proven by science, affect the developing child within mom and influence their susceptibility to the world of becoming a sensory kiddo. And then we have those stressed, colicky, sick, disconnected kiddos, babies, and then they become stressed, chronically sick, challenged toddlers. Man, that's my heart goes out to you. I got a toddler in my house, and she is not a sensory kiddo, thankfully, but she's challenging toddler, and we get to take care of the kiddos who have the sensoriness on top of that. And oh my gosh, mom and dad, you are warriors. You are such warriors. And the best thing is that watch mom and dad take a big deep breath once their kiddo calms down and become their normal toddlerness. And then we have that goes into that sensory spectrum stuck on kiddo, that stuck kiddo that is stuck in stress, that can't interact with the world, that is so disconnected, and the stress is just bombarding them. And then what are we turning to? Exhaust, angry, anxious, depressed teens. Some of these kiddos just stay in that locked autism state. And then those kiddos can transition to being autistic, disconnected adults, or they become burnt out, stressed out, anxious, or ADHD adults. This process, I could literally, when I was doing a case history on a kiddo yesterday, I was like, boom, 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 checking all these lists, literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we were there, stuck kiddo. And they went through all the things, right? Not all the kiddos have every single step, but a lot of the kiddos have most of the steps, 80% of the steps to get them there. So what's happening here is that their stress within their nervous system, their central nervous system cannot perceive the world correctly because stress is stuck on. Thoughts, traumas, toxins rev that central nervous system, get that stress stuck on, and they can't calm down, get balanced. Balance means better perception of the natural world versus constantly being stressed out. They can't filter out and coordinate all the information from all our different senses, right? The 5 senses, the 2 movement senses, our awareness of our body in space, all of those things are so overwhelming for these kiddos because stress is stuck on. The nervous system was never designed to constantly be in stress. And we see this in our office every day. What we also see is that we see these kids calm down. One of our favorite quotes, the function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate the behavior of all other cells. So perceive, coordinate, and create the proper behavior, but we cannot perceive, therefore we cannot properly coordinate, and then the behavior is altered. So altered perception, in our world, we call it subluxation, okay? Neurological interference, and we create altered function, right? We see this through many different things, but the world really sees it as number one, right? If you go out, like I did today, to the jump place, you see it in the altered motor function, right? The ratchety movements, the discoordination, the hypertensity or the lack of tone, right? The floppiness. All of these things, you can see these if you have a trained eye, it's easier, right? But if you get under the surface, this altered perception, neurological interference, causes issues in the gut, causes a stressed out improperly functioning immune system, has delays in speech. Social behavior is not on par for that certain age. We have behavior that is off the charts, and then emotions, which are like a loose cannon. One of the coolest studies that is out there that is proving what we do in our office, and in so many other pediatric chiropractic offices around the world. You see pediatric experience in the bottom corner of this slide. Man, this is a group of chiropractors who are on a mission to help kiddos like yours. This is Harvard developing child's discussion. Interaction of genes. I'm going to read some of it. Interactions of genes and experiences shape the developing brain. So what this is saying is that genes and how they're turned on and turned off through life experiences affect that developing brain. Last point, toxic stress weakens the architecture of the developing brain, which can lead to lifelong problems in learning, behavior, physical, and mental health. So this toxic stress caused by all those different steps that I showed you is weakening the architecture of a developing brain. So therefore, as that child moves on, their nervous system isn't coordinating in properly functioning. So where we come into the page and what we see in our office is that these neurological connections reconnect. We remove subluxation, we remove that interference to their central nervous system, we reconnect their brain and their body, directly influence the autonomic nervous system, and these childs begin to lighten back up. Throw some other stuff that the world's got on top of that. You're already doing the detoxes, the gluten, the dairy, getting the artificial colors and flavors out, seeing OT, PT, speech. You're doing all the things, right? But the thing that is missing is recoordinating that autonomic nervous system function. Here are two graphics from that study. The one with the different yellow, blue, and red bars, that's showing that what the impact within really the first year of life and what it does for the coordination of neurological connections within that body, right? Whether it's sensory pathways, language, or higher cognitive function. All of those get set really strongly within that first year of life. And then we go down after that. That doesn't mean that we can't have changes within that, but if we can catch that, that's why we love seeing infants in our office, especially these disconnected kiddos, is we can catch it, reconnect, and then they never turn in that sensory kiddo. But if you're already in that sensory storm, if you're already in this perfect storm of things, we can still make changes. Are we going to go back to fully? We've seen it, but the likelihood is we're just going to see improvements, calm down, better, clear, and connected kiddos. The other graph is just showing how the consistent stress within the nervous system, the toxic stress that they're referring to, weakens the architecture of neurological connections so that the nervous system, the nerves specifically within the nervous system, aren't interconnecting as well as they should be. So when did the stress occur and how much stress from thoughts, traumas, and toxins within their system influences how much care these kiddos need? And we'll talk more about that. Just talking about how the spine serves as a direct influence. This is what this slide is, direct influences into the central nervous system. That's why we as chiropractors, especially pediatric chiropractors, especially perfect storm kiddo chiropractors, work on the spine. Direct autonomic neurological function. That's why we adjust the spine in a non-traditional, non-pop twist crack kind of way to influence physiological, how the body functions, biology, as well as neurological, and create better communication between that brain and body. So what we talked about, stress stuck on via subluxation. We're going to talk about how we get to that disconnection. I'm going to show you some stuff. So first step of that is the lack of movement, right? A lack of movement in the spine causes misalignment and fixation. And therefore, here is where a lot of that begins, right? So pregnancy, stress causes the nervous system to not have the proper architecture. And then we have this first big insult, right? This is a C-section video, so if you're a little queasy, don't watch it. But reality is that the world that we live in, especially in our community, we have about a 30% C-section rate. Outside of that, the pulling, twisting, tugging on a baby's head influences that child's nervous system. Okay, so whether that's a C-section, traumatic birth, or just pulling, twisting, tugging on that child influences and causes that first dyskinesia or stuckness, especially in their upper cervical spine. So watch this.
Irritated.
Oh, there you go, fella.
Come on, buddy.
All right.
Ears of a girl. Ears of a girl.
Make you cute for the camera.
Okay, so he's gonna grip that head, pull it out, back and forth, boom, lift that baby all the way up by their head. Okay? It's a hard one to watch, but it's a sobering truth. Is that child put later into the car seat, if I were to go to that car seat and pick that child up by their head, just like they come out via that C-section, that parent would be at my throat. Why? Because that is such a delicate area. Cause trauma to that upper neck, base of the skull region, what happens is that cause an insult, nobody within our community, except for us, is talking about the implications of what happens when we have stress during pregnancy, and then we cause this insult, and then we lock in a central nervous system that cannot perceive the environment and leads on this path of spectrum sensory kiddos. So this was a study done by osteopaths and on healthy newborns. And out of 100 healthy newborns, they found 99 of them had at least one neurological interference or subluxation within their system. Mainly this top region, confirming what we were just talking about last time. Take a snapshot of this slide, screenshot of this slide, so you can look up some of these studies. They are crazy to prove what is going on that nobody's talking about. The moonwalking bear, the subluxation, the neurological interference, and what that is doing to these children. When we have that stuck area, right? Stuck area in the spine, now that stuck area either properly, so in a properly moving area, that's going to communicate via afferent nerve fibers. So nerve fibers that head from that area of the spine up into the brain, okay? When we have things that are not properly functioning, they're fixated, they're misaligned, they're going to cause disafferentation. So improper signaling into the nervous system, okay? When we have improper signaling, it has altered what we call proprioception. This proprioception is a vital nutrient to the brain. When we don't have proper proprioception, we therefore have nociception, which is stress. Okay, nociception is the sensory nervous system's response to certain or harmful, potentially harmful stimuli. When we have trauma, we have nociception, and therefore we're getting altered signals, and that's further continuing that stress. What we like to do is put a halt to that, create proper proprioception, create nourishment rather than stress to the brain. Here we are. But if that stress continues, it leads into what we call this disafferentation leads into the brain, which we're going to talk more about dysautonomia. But first, how it influences the amygdala, which deals with the emotional seat in the brain. One, I want you can screenshot this. You don't need me to read off these slides. Is hyperactivity of the amygdala is associated with fear and anxiety disorders. So this disafferentation this improper neurological function into the brain directly associated with fear and anxiety disorders. Next one, how it leads into the hippocampus. Situation awareness in order to properly navigate to one environment responses. There we go. Improper environment or improper input causing these kiddos to have a improperly functioning situational awareness. And then PFC is prefrontal cortex. So changes to the prefrontal cortex caused by improper input into the cerebellum. When you have improved cerebral function, we have improved vestibular, fine, gross motor, and better autonomic regulation. Changes to that, we can influence how the brain activates these higher centers. And these higher centers are where we have so much goodness happen. These kiddos, these sensory kiddos, cannot properly activate their prefrontal cortex. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now we have that dysautonomia. When you have that fixation, right, that lack of movement, go back to that C-section video, that's causing improper signals into the brain. And when that brain processes those signals, now we have improper processing. It's going to put a kiddo in protection. The brain's going to perceive that as stress and therefore perceives it as protection. And that child cannot be in growth when they're in protection. It's a basic neurological understanding within neurosciences is you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. If you're in fight and flight, you can't be in rest and digest. It's not proper. It's not possible. What we need to do is we need to calm down that protection, reintegrate, trigger that growth to get kiddos in a more balanced state so they can fluctuate between both of them in the way that the brain is designed to do. So stress stuck on. So now, prefrontal cortex, right? So why is this so important? This is vagus nerve tone. Any parent who's watching this video who has done some homework has most likely discovered the vagus nerve. What is the vagus nerve? Most people know it as the brake pedal function of the body. They activate that brake pedal. Pumping the brakes allows that child to slow down, integrate the world, rest, digest, become the best expression of themselves. One another thing that the vagus nerve does, which is cool, which is cutting edge research, is called sorry, I'm blanking right now. The social vagus. So social vagus is the brain's ability to activate that prefrontal cortex, use that vagus nerve tone to interact and be social. Social in the sense of looking in your eyes, interacting with your peers, saying I love you, being emotionally intelligent. All of things that which autistic kiddos, who are the strongest expression of farthest away from this, don't express. But when we reactivate prefrontal cortex, get things moving properly within the autonomic nervous system, we have proper vagal nerve tone. So prefrontal cortex not allowing this vagus nerve to activate, boom, article on parasympathetic functions in children with sensory processing disorder. Snip this one in the sense of screenshot this one. This is a huge one. So when we don't have a properly functioning vagus nerve, this leads to sensory processing disorders, one of the most cutting edge studies on integrative neuroscience. What does the world talk about? Heal that gut within those kids. So important. So important to heal that gut, but you can't forget about that the brain controls the gut and then the gut controls the brain. It's not the gut that controls the brain, it's the brain that controls the gut. They communicate, but it all starts with the brain. So work on that brain first, clear that gut up, because gut, we know, is that second brain. So much dopamine and serotonin, most of it comes from that gut. But that brain is the master control system that coordinates that gut. So if you're only focusing on the gut, guys, we got to go after that brain with direct autonomic function, and that's what we do. And now, when we have that dysautonomia within your kiddos, Now we have dysponesis. So dysponesis is improper output, improper what you're perceiving as your child. So it is composed of neurophysiological reactions to various agents and repercussions of these reactions throughout the organism. Neurophysiological reactions consist mainly of covert errors in energy expenditure. Basically, what that's saying is your perception of what your child is experiencing, how you're witnessing your child experience is this output, this dysponesis. Okay, so abnormal energy output. In our office, we use state-of-the-art neurological research or technology to look at how the nervous system is communicating with the body, and then how directly the nervous system is perceiving the world. See, these are scans on the bottom. We'll talk a little bit more about those. Okay, colors not super great. Whites more great. We want more balance between bars, and we want more whites. Okay. Man, looking at this image of this kiddo, whoo, he was one. He was so subluxated. He was had so much neurological disconnection. What we did is we started adjusting this kiddo. And the crazy thing is that we were the only influence in this child's life. Mom and dad didn't have him going to any OT, PT, or speech. He just got straight adjusted and made some lifestyle changes. He came in our office, could barely make eye contact with me, was throwing things off of our tables. It was probably the most stressful first visit on a kiddo that I've ever done. And now this kiddo comes in, looks in our eyes, says hello, gets right on the table, and he's in grade school now. And his parents are like, he's crushing it. He's developing right there with the rest of the kiddos, having a great time, and he's a joy to be around in our family. So, give you 3 other testimonials. Early childhood. We'll talk about these neurological scans. I'll show you both of them with these different testimonials. This kiddo, Mr. Houston, he was another one of those rat kiddos. He wouldn't look in your eyes. He said the meanest things. His mom's like, I don't even know where he learned these things. His parents couldn't leave him alone with his little brother because they were scared that they were going to hurt him. He was totally disconnected. He was sleeping awful. His digestion was off. He was not thriving. Okay. Picture now, in this picture, he's looking in his mom's eyes as she took this picture, or in the camera. These 2 scans, what we're looking at here is we clip these on a kiddo's ear, and what it does is it measures heart rate variability, which heart rate variability looks at how the autonomic nervous system, how that vagus nerve is influencing the body, therefore how well is that child activating their prefrontal cortex, uses skin conductance and skin temperature to see how that little brain is handling stress and how it's adapting to stress. So if we look at this from a x-axis, right? So left to right, right to left, and a y-axis, up and down, this left to right, right to left area is we have the left side. We're going to look left to right, right to left. This left side of this scan is what we call the sympathetic response. Okay, this black line is what we call balance. This right side is the parasympathetic response. Sympathetic is stress. Parasympathetic is healing or overdrive mode. This black line is vagus nerve tone, proper social vagal function, prefrontal cortex. We want that child to be on that black line. When they're further to the left, being that white and black square, they are stress stuck on. And the up and down, that's how they adapt to stress. Gosh, there are so many stressors in our world. Exercising is just stress. Interacting with the world is stress. Moving our body is stressful. Just not to you and I consciously, it's not stressful, right? But to our brain, it's a taxing thing. So our brain has to activate the stress response in order to make it happen. However, like a lot of people should, like we do, those of us who are doing something about it to perceive this world better, we hang out on that black line and we're higher up. We're up into that green zone. Okay. That means that when stressors come into our life, it doesn't throw off our nervous system. It doesn't throw off our body. We don't get overwhelmed. We don't get crazy sick. We don't have disruptions in sleep, right? If you're saying, oh my gosh, this sounds like me, probably not adapting well to stress. If you did this scan, you'd probably be low and you'd be stressed, right? So this little, I think Mr. Houston came into us at 3 years of age. If you look on this, the scan closest to him, he was tanked. He was tanked, right? I see a lot of dads who are in their 40s who have been blasted for the past 40 years in this area. We see a lot of kiddos these days, same spot, right? But through care, lifestyle changes, and through care, we influence their autonomic nervous system. And then boom, that other scan, black line, almost in the green zone. The shifts within this child were amazing. His parents could leave him alone with his brother now. He is saying nice, kind things to his mother. He's interacting with peers at school normally. Teachers saying he's a joy to be around. Normal kiddo. Second testimonial, this little one. Whew, love this little one. She's so great. So this is another expression of not doing well in school, can't focus, delays in development, has trouble learning. Her emotions are all over the place. She's not coordinated, but she was going through the OT and PT, right? We just put rocket boosters behind this. Chiropractors influence that autonomic nervous system directly, and she started crushing it through OT and PT. So these two scans are looking at something different. This is looking at infrared heat differences from either side of the spine. We want white. We don't want color. That color means that those are areas in which her nervous system's focusing on doing some healing. When we have expression up in this upper area, okay, those blue bars, that is consistent stress response, okay? Her child is dealing with that stress response. And through care, we get more balance between those bars, so equal bars on either side versus those big chunks from that scan with the blue on it versus the one with the green on it. We have more bar distribution from either side. That means her brain's properly coordinating the environment. And then that green bar, now at this phase of care, she was going after that C-section area, that pulling, twisting, tug area. Her brain is now focusing on the main core healing, the main core injury that so many kiddos experience that caused them to go into the storm. Fast forward, I see this beautiful little lady regularly in our office for wellness. She's crushing it. She's having a great time. Yes. Does she still have a few delays? Yes. Is she still a little bit more emotional? Yes. Yeah, for sure. But she is so different than what she was before. She's interacting. She is socially on point. And her mom has also changed some educational ways of teaching her that now she is learning so much better. She's so much happier and she's such a joy to be around. Then last one, this teen/young adult. This is an old picture of this guy. He is freaking huge now. He's in high school and he towers over me, which is not a hard thing to do because I'm a short guy. But this same thing, like Mr. Noel or Mr. Houston that we started with, these are these two scans: stressed out, drained, more balanced. Okay, this was the kiddo that mom was like, his emotions are all over the place. He kicks, he hits, he screams. He didn't develop properly. He didn't crawl. His birth was traumatic. He was a disaster toddler. He was always sick, right? And we caught him in middle school as a young teen. Okay, maybe 12 years old when we started him. Now, doing so much better in school. He is quote unquote normal kid. And the crazy thing that hit me is that mom told me early on is that, though we'll hear about all those kiddos who do really terrible things at school and hurt kids. Man, I could see my kiddo doing that. Now, here we are. Mom is excited about her future. Mom is never feeling like her son is going to blow up and have some crazy disaster happen at school. She's excited about his future versus afraid of his future. And the kiddo who didn't like learning is now in love with learning, still not the biggest fan of school, but he loves learning. He was always telling me about things that he'd been learning in his life. Super, super intelligent kiddo and thriving and finding some of his own passions, starting to play sports, things that he'd never done before. Okay? So here we are. Action steps. You need to keep asking questions, finding answers. Keep asking questions and finding answers. Your kiddos need you. And I promise you they can have a massive transformation. Reality is, if you're watching this, you're seeking some alternative advice from the mainstream world. Good for you. Because in this world, we honor the creation of this thing, that it's intelligent, that the world's thrown it off, and we reconnect it, bring it back to nature, get it the way that it was designed to be so that your kiddo can thrive. Reduce and remove those thoughts, traumas, and toxins. Get them out of toxic situations, detoxify them, clean up their life. Big thing, get your kiddo scanned. Get those scans done on them, whether it's in our office or other pediatric chiropractic office that does these scans. Man, we would love to help your kiddo if you are in our community. Reference the Perfect Storm webinar, and we will rock it out with your kiddos and get them on the path of recovery. Okay. How long does it take? Different for every kiddo. When along those steps was this stress introduced into their life? How long is it going to take? Do we get to see them when they're 3 months old or 1 year old or 1.5? Or are we seeing them when they're 25, right? All that influences how long it's going to take to see some epic results. Every human being is different. Some people blow me away with how quickly or how long it takes. But we have a formula from seeing so many kiddos and linking up with other offices who take care of these kiddos to understand how to best do this, right? Me, Dr. David, I worked at the largest pediatric chiropractic office in the world, and their practice is centered around this work. So I've had a lot of experience doing it, learning from the person who has taught me how to do this and how we've done it in our office over the last 4 years. So what does it measure? Autonomic nervous system function, how your kiddo is perceiving the world, and how we can help. Okay? Let's get them scanned. And mom and dad, you will be thrilled at the transformation that your kiddo experienced. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, be well.